All right, everybody. Welcome to the first of 3 Institute Open Labs for the 2021 Flexible Course Experience Institute. And today our goal is to have some spotlights where we want to have one or more people share their strategies for teaching in multimodal circumstances, creating flexible course environments or outfitting classrooms, whatever role you play, we want to hear from your perspective. And we have today this and 2 more open labs after that. So if you can't do it today or you're not ready, that's quite all right. We also want to provide opportunities for people to ask for feedback on something that they really want to develop before they begin their class or their professional development experience on their campus. And so it'll be an open forum where people can share what they're doing, maybe even share their screen, and then just get feedback in the chat and other venues. We'll have a round of Q&A for people who just have questions about topics that we discussed during the 4 Institute modules or the 12 Institute micro lessons, if you will. And last but not least, if there's time and interest, we can dive into some specific flexibility topics related to assessment, content review, engagement, or anything else. And so I'd like to start by having us go around and share what our goals are now that we've finished the 4 modules, what we want to do with that information, that knowledge. What's the quote from Spider-Man? With great power comes great responsibility. So what are we going to do with what we learned? And Kara from Cal State LA has offered to kick us off. So Kara, take it away.
I did. I am generally, I'm using this information to help out other faculty as they adjust their courses into some form of, I know we don't say high flex, so some sort of flexible classroom. So last week was quite a week. So I really appreciate how flexible this is because I'm really diving in this week. So I'm joining today and for these next few months to really get information on what other people are doing and gathering so I can help others.
Thank you. Who else would like to share what they're doing either at the course or campus level?
I can share if you don't mind.
Please.
So, hi everyone, I'm Mauricio. I'm from Cal State San Bernardino, and I had the best intentions of doing this live, but life just got complicated, and now I'm having to complete it asynchronously. So what we are going to be doing, currently in Cal State San Bernardino, we got some funding to redo all of our classrooms, both at the main campus and then at our Palm Desert site. And so we're looking at about 285 total classrooms, about 250 at the main campus and about 35 at Palm Desert, that are all going to be retrofitted into smart classrooms. So cameras and microphones up in the ceilings with multiple monitors in front, a monitor in the back, etc. Just kind of like a distance learning classroom, but it's going to be now for all of them. And so the idea is that, as everybody knows, with this whole flex schedule, we're also not calling it flex, but we don't have a specific name yet for it. But the idea is that all faculty who are going to teach in these classrooms in fall, they would apply for a stipend. And stipend is going to be provided for those faculty to get trained into the pedagogy of, high flex and hybrid and stuff. And I've been charged with creating a course, a campus specific course of about 2 hours asynchronous, kind of like Canvas, which, by the way, we're also in the transition of Canvas. So faculty are going to have a chance of either teaching using Blackboard or Canvas. Most likely we're going to I want to push for Canvas to do the trainings. But the faculty will then take a 2-hour sort of asynchronous, very similar to this course, training sort of workshop. And once they complete that, they are going to be invited into one of the classrooms that are already completed for them to demonstrate sort of what they're going to be doing. So similar to the project that we do in this class or in this course, you know, we're trying to come up with a project or an idea that we're going to do for the faculty in order for them to receive the stipend, will be to develop, you know, like a lesson, come into the classroom, become familiar with all the technology that is going to be, and then, you know, teach the lesson, you know, to my director and myself, so that we can actually see whether or not they're applying some of the pedagogical you know, approaches, strategies that we've learned in this course and in their particular course that I'm creating for them. The stipend is going to be, you know, it doesn't, the way that it's being structured for us is that it doesn't matter if you teach one class or you teach a full load, but we're still thinking about with regards to student participation and what students do, and eventually what kind of course ends up being, right? Because since now students have the choice of staying at home rather than coming here, then there is going to be a difference between if the faculty decides to just do, you know, be in an empty classroom teaching online, or if the faculty is going to be in a full face-to-face classroom, you know, with few students and stuff like that. The requirements will be to complete, you know, that sort of 2-hour training. We're looking into getting a small little certificate of completion to make sure that they've actually done what they needed to do, and then the equipment knowledge, you know, sort of check, and you know, along with that, we are also looking into hiring approximately 25 student assistants that are going to have to be trained into, you know, the flex model sort of thing, and also train into the, you know, how the technology in the classrooms work. You know, so the idea is that, you know, those students are going to be rotating when faculty are in the classrooms, you know, to provide that sort of technical assistance. And that's sort of where we are and why I'm taking the course.
Great. And Mauricio, that gives me an opportunity to remind everyone here and our people who are working on their own time that just as you are going to construct a 2-hour experience for your faculty, you're welcome to take any part of the Institute and either reuse it. Literally, I call it Institute in the Box, where someone presses play, listens to the video, and then when I say press pause and participate in activity, you facilitate it. Or I've created scripts and slides for every topic in this institute, so people can take them, edit them, record their own versions, or just basically conduct their own live versions to support the faculty you're hoping to train. And then last but not least, I know some of the faculty and some of the faculty developers like Sacramento State, Janae Cohn was going to scrap it for parts, which means just take 1 or 2 things that make sense and everything else might be locally created. Also, I'm a huge fan of the cadre of student assistants like you are planning to do. If you need models, take a look at LaGuardia Community College and their student tech mentors. I referenced them in one of the mini lectures, one of the micro lessons, and I'll put the link to it in the chat in a second. But that they have been doing it before the COVID, and it's been a highly successful use of students to support faculty and students with the use of technology in crazy times. So very great to hear what you're doing down there in San Bernardino. I proposed Burduflex as a potential name, but that's just tongue-in-cheek, a little joke. Who else would like to share what they're doing individually or campus-wide before we move on to our spotlight?
I was just going to mention from, just amplify off of what was said from San Bernardino that, and Kevin, you just mentioned Sac State, and we are doing a similar type of thing in terms of equipping a number of classrooms with the newer technology and everything. And we're also running a series of professional development training for faculty We're looking, as Janae had indicated, and as Kevin had indicated, we're looking at incorporating part of this particular course into some of the various course activities that we have planned over the summer.
Thanks, Dennis.
This is
Anybody else?
Troy Challenger
Hi, Troy.
from CSU Monterey Bay. We also will be having many of our rooms will be being converted, and we are doing a cohort of faculty who will need to be trained in those rooms. Plus, we are also moving the campus from Moodle to Canvas. So we've got this kind of a mixed mash of things going on. But one of the things that we are going to do on the moving them into the classrooms and giving them a chance to learn that is to bring them in as break our faculty up into cohorts and bring in about 16 or so at a time, and then break them up into sub cohorts of about 8 each, 4 of which will be the external learners and 4 will be in the classroom. So they'll have 30 minutes each to actually practice what they're doing with a similar setting that they would have in their real classroom setting, and but not drive people crazy, because listening to 2 hours of somebody else, messing up is harsh, right? So I think we can all give 2 hours to our compatriots to help them do that. So that's kind of our plan right now. And if other people have tried similar things and said, yeah, that's not a good idea, let us know, because that's the direction we're heading.
Great. I love the idea of having shorter bursts of practice sessions. And again, we'll make that possible during these open labs as well. So fantastic. Who else would like to share what they're planning to do with their course or their professional development offerings? It looks like Lalita has her hand up.
Yes, I can share. I'm from Fresno State, and then we are doing two sessions, two workshops for faculty. One will be in summer, around I think 50 faculty will be participating, and other one will be in the fall, so that they can implement their flexible rooms in the spring semester. So there are 2 of them, and then we are having summer training. It starts in June last week, now next week, from next week onwards. And of course, faculty have their workshop, some incentive to join. So there is some money associated with that. And then essentially, we are going to have faculty learning communities over the continuously in the fall as well as for the spring, because I as an instructor and I as a instructional, I'm also a facilitator for the faculty. So I'm in dual role. So I'll be implementing my own classroom as well as I'll be training along with the faculty. So we are all in learning phase here. So our classrooms are getting ready. So they're almost ready. We use Canvas already. And then we are going to use only for either person-to-person or face-to-face classrooms and synchronous. There is no asynchronous part to our facility in Fresno State, because that is just too much. It adds too many things to our professors. We talked earlier to the faculty. They felt it just too much to make it online, for the asynchronous students. So the asynchronous classes are just asynchronous classes. And then they have been trained with the QLT and all that. And this is for in-person or synchronous, those who can join offline, of course, virtual, but it's going to be synchronous, all of that. So that's at Fresno State.
Thank you. And I know other campuses like Chico State are doing something similar, where they're focusing right now on real-time engagements, but in different modalities, in person and virtual or remote. So, and kind of making a phased transition to possibly add in the asynchronous, and that's a choice every instructor and campus has to make. Betsy.
Hello, so I'm at Stan State, and the 3 of us from our campus, Rada Tipperwell, Diane Vargas, and I have been working very hard on a summer pedagogy workshop series that started yesterday that has included sessions on teaching in a physically distanced classroom and hybrid course design. And we have additional workshops on things like the online note taking and engaging with online texts, and a variety of writing assignment kind of things, tech tools, and some of those. And we have been able to draw upon several of the resources that you've talked about and some of the tools that you're using to help inform some of the work that we're doing. We also have a fall online and hybrid teaching faculty learning community that we believe will be able to draw upon some of the resources and strategies that you've been talking about here. We don't have very many faculty at all, just a few that are actually doing a real HyFlex model for fall, but we do know that that we have faculty that are teaching a lot of hybrid courses and courses that are being recorded for student asynchronous participation, but not a lot of courses that are including simultaneous face-to-face classes with synchronous engagement online. But we also know from a lot of experience that we are likely to have course shutdowns in fall because of bad air quality and other kinds of things. So that courses that were intended to be face-to-face are going to change modality during the course of the fall term. And potentially even, we've had semesters where the first day of class has not happened because of air quality and other things. So we are trying to equip faculty with a variety of tools for engagement with students ahead of the first day of class, as well as once courses begun. And certainly there are many of the resources offered in this program this summer that are going to be very useful to us. So we are beginning to use some of those resources, but also seeing some additional ways to plan those into future workshops we're using.
Wonderful. That sounds great. And I know that other campuses are thinking through the potential disruption in instructional continuity, whether it's pandemics or wildfires. Power outages are a little bit tougher because you need the power to do the technology, but I know it is clever to help faculty think through this in advance rather than be in reaction mode. We've got two Seans, a Katie and a Catherine, and I'll just see if any of them want to share what they're planning to do, or if we can move to the spotlight.
I'll go quickly. I'm in the gym, so I'm not sure you guys can hear me very well.
We can.
But one thing that our campuses work on this in general, but on my program in particular, we're working so that every course has at least a 2-week online version for these exact disruptions. So we at Cal State Channel Islands, we have a lot of issues related to wildfire, et cetera. So even before we talk about how the flex is going to evolve, just as a default, we want everybody to be able to flick a switch and have some at least sort of generic type of modules that could be put on at the beginning of the semester, middle of the semester, end of the semester, to ease the learning, but also in particular to reduce the stress on my faculty. So what I've found is when we have these stressful, these shutdowns, it's incredibly disruptive to family life and everything else. So by having these in the can, the hope is even if you don't use them, they're always there and good to go and sort of a best practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And Sean Sumner said he's here to learn from Dr. Dahlquist, who will be up next. We'll just give Catherine and Katie a chance to chime in with what they're planning if they wish, and if not, we'll jump to the next thing. All right, well, it's a series. We have more open labs, so if you want to share next time, that's quite all right. So without further ado, let's move to the spotlight portion of the program. And Dr. Dahlquist has graciously agreed to share some of his strategies and maybe some of the challenges he faced as he was an early bird to move in the flexible direction. And I'll let him describe what that means and how it's working and what he's going to do this fall.
Very good. Well, thank you for the opportunity to present. First off, I'd like to say that I didn't just overnight sort of switch here into doing this. So this is a longer journey. I mean, I go back to the old televised class days and stuff like that. So, you know, moved from that to variations off of hybrid and flipped classrooms and that stuff. So this has been a work in progress over a series of years. And so, you know, detecting some of those particular presentations from earlier about the stress on faculty, and I'm very much concerned about that. Sometimes when I present, I mean, faculty get very stressed, like, how can I do all those things? How you're doing all those things and stuff like that. So it's something that it's a gradual kind of process. And as Kevin has mentioned, you know, you want to take, you know, bits and try to see what you can work in and try to work with and stuff like that. Also, I'd like to say that this would not be possible without an entire campus team. So, I mean, you know, I'd like to, you know, thank the IRT, Information Resource Technology group, our IT group on campus, and CTL, Center for Teaching and Learning. This has been a very supportive environment to allow those things to happen. With that said, my background, I'm basically faculty in electrical and electronic engineering and computer engineering. So the topics I'll sort of show you are very technology intensive. There are portions where you need to basically have show something on screen, or a webcam showing the actual hardware. There's some software going on. You need to have that particular piece. There's some notes that go along with that. There's a number of different types of things, also having guest speakers and stuff. So it's kind of pushing the envelope on the technology on those particular things. So out of that has grown this sort of flexible, agile type of classroom. Background on myself, I've been a mentor for CTL for a number of years. I was also former lead faculty for the Chancellor's Office, course redesign with technology, and also virtual labs and lab innovations with technology. My interests basically are in well, really student learning is really the overall guiding particular piece. I'm looking at ways I can sort of improve those particular types of aspects. So I've gone through a lot of professional development with QM, COLT, AQ, also with the various Chancellor's Office programs with affordable learning solutions, open educational resources, virtual labs. I've done a lot of faculty mentoring and also technology consultant. My teaching experience includes, as you heard just a few minutes ago, basically stemming all the way back to the televised sorts of courses days, but I have experience in online, hybrid, flipped classroom, agile, flexible courses. I was looking at this from a standpoint of, again, back to how can I get to the student learning piece? What's going to be helpful for those particular students? In some cases, they need to be there and present. In other cases, they missed something and they want to be able to catch up, or they can't quite make it in or something like that. So how can I be inclusive? How can I help the people who are not only in the classroom but outside of the classroom also? And I've also been looking at Education 4.0. I've been sort of experimenting with that, incorporating that into coursework. Basically, that goes a whole other topic, but in a nutshell, this is basically providing learning environments versus just teaching. That same kind of thing of just a didactic kind of here's what you should know type of thing, more along the lines of providing how do you design a sort of learning environment so the students can sort of flourish in that particular aspect. Computer-based testing, virtualization, simulation with virtual labs, and also looking at activities to basically how do I promote student engagement? How do I get them interested in the particular topics as they move towards their career goals? What are as they're moving through their college experience? Some flexible course tips. As we've been going through the modules here and discussing a number of those things, there's sort of an overriding particular piece, which is incorporating really universal design for learning. Okay, so I found that I attended a course, Chancellor's Office faculty learning community back 10, 12 years ago, basically, which was on universal design, and said, aha. And because that really focused on the learning aspects, how can we reach students with different modalities, different kinds of scenarios and stuff. So rather than worrying about the particular boxes whether it was a face-to-face course or an online course or whatever, basically, how can I address the student learning as foremost from that, and looking at how to give sort of student choice to help with that. Some flexible course tips. We talked about this in the course a little bit earlier. I found that having some sort of back channel sort of options, using the chat in Zoom, Google Docs, Microsoft Word, something where the multiple people can provide their information. What I found is that's very helpful from the standpoint that it's a parallel type of operation where people can simultaneously put in their questions or comments versus in the classroom, we have the sort of serial type of thing where you raise the hand, ask the question, one person can speak at a time type of thing. So I found that to be very, very helpful. On the assessments, basically exams, quizzes, assignments, a couple of things I found that were sort of useful were having sort of a due date range versus just a hard, fast due date type of thing. So that they have a range to help kind of accommodate them a little bit in terms of they're on different schedules or they have different study times that they're doing some aspects. So I've had it kind of due like on a Thursday and then finishes being due on a Sunday. There's no penalty for turning it in after Thursday or whatever type of thing. And there may or may not be a penalty depending on what the topic is and what you're trying to accomplish with that particular course. After that, but they also just having the due dates do help them kind of pace themselves through the course and stuff like that. So I think that's important to have those aspects also. I found it useful to offer sort of help sessions where students can, especially in sort of an asynchronous course, but just in a synchronous course also, this is sort of a help session is where they can come in and just ask various questions. It's kind of like an office hours, but kind of not. I mean, it's in an office hours, you can have any various kinds of questions coming at you about, can I add this class, or can you give me a recommendation letter or something like that? And usually sort of, try to do a little bit more individual. With the help session is sort of an open type of thing where they can also kind of help each other and everything too on things that they've had some difficulties with. So I found that to be fairly helpful. I found that also scaffolding assignments, activities, if they're having difficulty, especially as you're on a particular assignment and there just seems to be a big disconnect on that's caused me to not point the finger at the classroom or at the students, but more at what's that activity, what did I miss there, how could I help them a little bit better with that. How can I help them sort of build a little bit more confidence? Trying to address those issues of, I don't know what to do. I didn't know what wasn't really sure. So, and I found that I've used sort of like the zero activity or the lab zero activity or the, micro lecture or zero activity, something that sort of starts them kind of builds up to sort of a level playing field. So people can, so the students, even though it may have been in a prereq class that basically that were kind of leveled up a little bit so we understand what the terms are and stuff like that. So I found that that was very useful. Also with helping to build up a little bit of confidence that way. So they're kind of learning from this and kind of stages from that, the sort of has a tendency to kind of minimize the teaching. It seems like, sorry, minimizes the cheating. That's not what I meant, but it doesn't really minimize the teaching at all, but basically minimizes the cheating on the exams, because they're feeling a little bit more confident that they can actually answer the questions or do that task, rather than, no, I just need to find a way around it. Along those lines, I found it having maybe some quizzes that are unlimited, so they can repeat it over and over again, so they can just sort of try it, rather than this high stakes, they have to just only get it once or something like that. I've looked at, this is the one that Leslie Kennedy liked a lot, was basically for the midterm options. What I did was I kind of split out the midterm. So it was into two sections. There's one section was a timed exam, because they don't really, a lot of us don't like timed exams, but the reality is that they are still exist, and they are, part of their, part of that major, part of that creation, part of that career path and stuff like that. So they do need to have some experience with that. But also I found that I needed to get another resolution. I'm supposed to be evaluating the students in terms of what are their capabilities and stuff like that. How well are they understanding some of these things? So then I added another piece, which was kind of like a spin off the old take-home exam. So I had another portion of the exam where they would have a week or two, basically, where they could approach the problems or the questions or something like that in an unlimited sense. So they could take it over and over again. Now, these aren't the exact same questions. These are basically using a large test bank for both the timed exam and the unlimited particular piece. So each time they come into the exam, it's really a different exam. So everybody gets the same exam, but a different exam. For example, 2 + 2 would be which of the following. 3 + 3 would be which of the following. Well, those are the same question, but they're a different question and they have a different answer, but it's testing the same pedagogical or same sort of learning outcome that I'm looking for there in terms of that aspect. So that was an example of that. Some other interesting things to kind of help with the engagement just a little bit in the discussions. So I provide some homework and then solutions or answers and solutions to the homework. This way they can kind of check their own work. So there's not such a delay type of thing between when they turn in assignment and when it's being able to be graded and get back to them. Because usually if there's too much of a delay, then the feedback doesn't seem to kind of get back to them very well. So this way they have that. I found that having a few wrong answers, and again, a few, or solutions fostered some discussion. It's like, well, I think there's something wrong with this, okay? And I didn't purposely put in the wrong solution or wrong answer. They seem to organically happen, okay? We're human and they happen. And that's also one of the things I try to demonstrate to the students too, is basically that, I'll, do it by hand, and then I'll make mistakes and just say, well, this is a mistake. We just kind of recover from it and do some other pieces here. But that caused, well, why do you feel that way type of thing? And so that basically really caused some questions to foster some questions on that. Also, what I found useful was then to have, as this is sort of, again, the topic here, sort of engineering, math, that type of STEM kind of arena. And I found then that using sort of analytic tools or simulation tools where they could actually take what they've done some hand analysis with, and then actually be able to put it into a simulator at this point, and then verify that their particular hand calculations, which is what we would do professionally. And so I want to, mimic some of those particular types of skills and everything. So they're develop those, but that also gives them a little more time on the material. Plus, if they don't understand something, it's sort of, it's able to capture that straight away. For some like lab assignments or use quizzes instead of lab reports. Again, they still need to write a report, but sometimes the tedium of writing reports after reports just gets to be a little bit. And of course, it's a lot of wear on faculty in terms of, and especially as you have a larger class. So found that just, what are the essential aspects here, and can we, handle that with a couple of some quizzes, and then target the reports for other particular assignments in that manner. Also found to use demonstrations, basically if they would sort of demonstrate a particular activity or what they sort of found here or something like that, that would help foster some questions about their particular understanding. This provides some formative and summative assessments, basically summative in the fact that you can, grade it in that regard, formative in that it also informs you, but it also informs them. There's a discussion that occurs about that. The other piece, this was, I believe, also mentioned in the series here too, was I was looking for some sort of project activity where the students can take the material learned and make it relevant to their particular major, career trajectory, so they have an opportunity to either sort of do a little project or a little activity or something like that that's work. They can either do that individually or do it as a group type of thing. And then this can also be part of their portfolio. So this is something that they can use then later for an interview as basically samples of their particular work and stuff like that. So, and that's basically tied together, then that course material helps them kind of process all of that, and then how it's useful in that regard. Yeah, if there's time. So the other thing I wanted to show you was I'd also put together a presentation here for the last Cal Tech Direct Connect last summer. And this was the theme here is an array of technology to engage and enhance the learning. And the key aspect here is the agile and flexible learning environment. So again, part of that education 4.0 type of thing, where you're really trying to provide a learning environment rather than just sort of talk at them or didactically go through that. I found it very useful to use the sort of a chat channel, this back channel type of aspect. And then using multiple applications here to provide sort of the learning, to help with the learning environment. So this particular room, you actually see it behind me in my, from my video cam with my Zoom backdrop, basically. This is showing the room. This is also equipped with microphones from the ceiling, a lot of the types of things that we've been talking about with the newer sorts of setups where you have the cameras set up. So you can do that. Again, is doing a lot of this pre-COVID, pre-pandemic and stuff like that. So again, for the last 5 to 8 years type of thing. So you're sort of your standard classroom with the screen up here. But this also allows people then who, with this, using the streaming technology like Zoom and stuff, that they have sort of a front row seat. So we're sure. So the remote students basically are using like Zoom, so they have their particular setup. Oh, I'll show you that in just a second. Let me show you, jump to that particular piece. I think I have a.
I didn't mean to interrupt your flow. I'm just curious, and I'm guessing some of the people who are watching the recording might be too. Is I know that a lot of campuses are setting up ceiling microphones for in-person students, but how well can the remote students actually hear them? And is there any protocols in terms of calling on students or asking them to repeat things if people are putting in the chat can't hear, that kind of thing? So just the logistics, or the
Sure. Exactly.
real application of these ideas.
Yeah, that's also why it's very important to have that chat channel, that back channel basically set up so that you can hear from the remote students, basically, if they're having some difficulty with that. I find that, in being up in the front of the room, this is a larger sort of room. I think the capacity for this room is like 70 or 80 students and stuff like that. So you can have some people in the back and it may be a little harder to kind of hear, but the microphones are sort of set up so they can, they would pick up those, actually to the point where you have to be careful that you actually warn students that when they come into the classroom that there are microphones above them, and there are things that you know, so if they are going to talk privately, they would need to, you know, adjust for that or go outside or something like that, because that can be included in the particular recording. But some of the other types of technology that's being used then are beam steering microphones. So basically it'll pick up on who's talking in the room and then steer the beam microphone towards that, and then do noise canceling for the background information. So that works out pretty good. I was using another device that basically has a speaker and beam steering microphone for doing the similar kind of thing. And those are some of the ones that are being installed now. I think they're using like a Sony or whatever type thing that is a beam forming or beam steering kind of microphone type of thing too. You are correct. So one of the types of things though I did find was you know, technology is great, and it's even really great when it works, and boy is it a problem when it's not. Okay, so one of the things I found was that I'll repeat what the question just as a technique for a couple of different reasons. One is there may have been something going on with the audio, and two, did I really hear what they were asking correctly, and then I'll get corrected or not, and then basically so using those kinds of techniques. An interesting kind of sidebar, I had a student, this is more of a graduate type of class or something like that, and I mentioned how, you know, a portion of the class would be you know, remote and stuff like that if they wanted to do that. And then she insisted, said no, you know, I said I didn't, you know, I really didn't like that as an undergrad, you know, at Berkeley. And I said, well, you know, wow, I mean, you know, Berkeley's like head of the game on a lot of stuff. What was the problem? So, well, yeah, you could just kind of you know, go in from your dorm and sort of, you know, listen to the class type of thing. But said, well, the problem they had was just the one you just pointed out, Kevin, was basically that it was Jeopardy. I mean, you get the answer, but what was the question? And so having heard that, I basically, you know, really try to keep that in mind as I'm presenting and stuff like that. So yeah, another good, very good technique.
Let's go for another minute or two, and then let's see
sure,
if
yeah,
anybody,
let me
has
just,
questions for you.
yeah, let me just go ahead and wrap up a little bit here. A couple of key points. One is that it is flexible, so students can, in this case, sort of flex between, they can change between what they want to do here. They can be come into the face-to-face, they can do hybrid, they could come to the class sessions that way, or they can do an online format. They can also treat the course synchronous or asynchronous if they'd like. Let's see, key points here was the one I was just making a few minutes ago, was like using Zoom. Everybody has sort of a front row seat so they can sort of see what's up on the screen more directly. I've had students that would come into the class, have their own laptops, be on Zoom in the classroom, just so they could actually see what was going on there and also contribute to the chat channel and stuff like that too. So again, it's just kind of what universal design, just so what's best for their particular learning and what they would like to do. Good. What I found for the guest speakers, using tools like Zoom, the guest speaker could be in their own native environment, their own laptop and stuff like that, rather than trying to convert to a stick and using some university resources or some different kind of computer they're not really familiar with type of thing. So this was essential for a lot of the intensive kind of electronic kind of work that they're doing here. So another key point was I wanted to quickly sort of point out was the use of a secondary monitor. Okay, so what I use the secondary monitor for, also sometimes referred to as a courtesy monitor. Anyway, this allows me to see what is going out. So I have another device basically logged into the streaming channel, so I can see what the students who are online are seeing. So I can see that the stream is, if it's going down or something, I can see that straight away. Plus, it also provides a nice I can also use that as a chat channel, so I can sort of easily sort of see what is going on there without broadcasting that. Some of the tools like Zoom don't necessarily show the chat channel unless you don't, and if you don't want to. Others don't really necessarily give you that option.
Dennis, Sean Anderson asked, what fraction of your students change their modality over any given class when they have the choice?
Wow. That's a hard call. I would say probably something like maybe 20-30% kind of switch back and forth. It also will depend a little bit on the topic. As I said, I'll have like a guest speaker, and then in some cases the class will be very full because they want to be right there and kind of ask some questions that way. So it depends on the topic a little bit, but it will kind of trend back and forth that way. And here, I mean, just wanted to leave you with my thank you for letting me present. And there's a QR codes that will actually take you to further my e-portfolio page for the course redesign that I did for the Chancellor's office. And then there's also a video going through the virtual labs and stuff like that for further information if you like.
That's awesome. And I see Sean Sumner has a question: how to help students unfamiliar with flexible or hybrid courses as they adapt to the new modalities, and in particular, helping students understand how the course modality works differently than a lecture that they might be more familiar with, and how to benefit from the new freedoms and responsibilities of the modalities. So we gets right to, we had in every one of my micro lessons, right? The concept of supporting our students through this experience.
Yes, definitely. So I think there's definitely communication. I mean, there's certainly a an orientation piece, and then that needs to be sort of also a micro lesson or recorded piece, so that so others can follow as they add the course a little bit later or whatever, or refresh themselves and stuff along those lines. But yes. You are correct. That is a transitionary piece. They are basically kind of, they're used to more of a traditional kind of fashion. Of course, these days, now coming back, basically, they've had a lot more Zoom experience in that particular manner. But is it okay if I stream this online? Is it okay if I come in? So they'll ask, they'll ask those particular types of questions. So I try to do the best to cover that up front, but then also reiterate that on the forums and in the classroom.
And Sean Sumner, I put together some blog posts on how we can support our students in multimodal learning circumstances. So I'll try to dig those up real quick and put them in the chat. But one thing I'm a big advocate for is helping students practice the same way we want our faculty to practice, so that it's not the first time they're engaging in some new learning activity and being scored on it, or possibly having a detrimental effect on their ability to learn because they can't get the audio to work or something else. So open labs for students as well as for faculty is one thing I would start with, but I'll dig up that blog post and post it in the chat. In the meantime, let's see who else has questions for Dennis, or just questions in general.
Yeah, correct. I would just add that I'm, personally, I haven't, don't have a student assistant. I mean, that would be really great, but but I've taken some time to work up, to sort of cognitively take care of the, you have to pause yourself a little bit, so that not only can they answer both either verbally in the classroom, but also online. So you give them some time to, type something in the chat or whatever at that point too. So.
So there's one of the blog posts in the chat, and I think I had another one. I'll see if I can find that as well. But we do have another 30 minutes for people who can stay, and we can use it for, again, feedback. If people are working on something and want to get feedback from the people who are here, we can ask questions about the topics from either Dr. Dahlquist's presentation here or the Institute modules. Great to see him practicing some of the things that I described, so lends credence to the ideas that I put together. And last but not least, if people just want to discuss further, like how long it takes to do something, like I'd be interested to know with a second monitor and all these other pieces of equipment, Dennis, how long does it take you to set up before each class? Is it a lot of extra time?
Not a lot of extra time. I mean, we added things in like single sign-on and stuff. So you have to, I have to use a number of different applications. I have to sign in on those particular things. But sometimes they're just using an iPad type of thing. So just setting up and logging into the Zoom session. So that comes up fairly quickly. And then I also just wanted to add, Kevin, that I've seen your presentations at a number of particular events and conferences and stuff like that. So there's no wonder that there's some similarity, because you influenced what I was doing. So there you go.
Aha, there you go. Well, touche. Thank you. That's great to hear. I used to teach preschool, and it's one of those things where they go off and you never know what happens to them. So similar with the ideas that I put out there, sometimes you never know if people adopt them or not.
Well, and I guess a couple of things. I mean, I'm, this is coming from STEM, and so you feel like in some cases, and I've had some of those comments from other faculty, who was like, well, you're kind of like babying them or coddling the students a lot. And I'm going like, because you're telling them all these particular things. I found that isn't the case. Okay. That we would all like to know what we're doing and stuff like that. And that isn't, I don't see where that really necessarily interferes with that. It's kind of like, well, nobody did all that for me. I had to learn the hardware type thing. And I said, well, it's not necessarily learning the easy way, but if we could just be on track, there's so many distractions and stuff like that. So that's what I really liked about the micro lessons, about the start here, from the QM, basically here's what the structure is, and really putting together that overall structure aspect was really very helpful.
Great. Yeah, I tried to model practice what I preach. And that's why I know a lot of people, including Mauricio, who had every intention to be here in person, or at least live, and said that he had to rely on the recordings in some circumstances. I think Kara mentioned that as well. And that's, to the point that I forget if it was Sean Anderson who asked about the percentage of students who chose a specific modality. I know some of the literature for flexible course and experiences shows that students typically stick with one, but that doesn't count in the fact that there are going to be students who need that flexibility on a moment's notice. My child got sick, I have to go pick him or her up from school. And so I can't attend class at the specific time. Or in the case of Lalita, where there's not going to be an asynchronous option, knowing that, hey, I don't feel well, but I still can participate in class by having the lecture running while I'm sitting slumped over my desk in my dorm room. It makes it possible to not expose your fellow classmates to illness, but you don't miss out on valuable information. So there's just so many aspects of this flexible course experience that we need to explore and ask our students how they're going to take advantage of it, what will help them the most.
Right. Can I?
Please, Lalita.
So on our campus, as a policy, at least in my classroom, I always record all my lectures, all the synchronous lectures. So they are available all the time to students. So just in case, because I know this is crazy time, students cannot come sometimes, whatever you may say, it's synchronous and only in person, but you have to be considerate. So, and I encourage that while when I train the faculty, I tell them that you make your course material accessible, and students should be able to have access to whatever you teach. Because situations, they vary all the time. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, I wanted to just amplify off of Sean Summers' question a little bit earlier in terms of the transition aspect. I find it useful to cover another issue in the opening of the course and in the syllabus, mentioning that the lectures are recorded, and so they can catch up with some of the stuff and everything, but to try to warn them, there's certain amount of human nature that well, because those recordings are available 24/7, that they're available anytime, and how anytime turns into no time, because all of a sudden, now's the midterm is coming up. And so we're trying to binge watch, 20 lectures or something like that, or, 20 videos. And, that's hard enough to do that for Netflix, let alone lectures where you're trying to actually, videos where you're actually trying to extract some information. So I warn them about that too. But that's also some of the design within the course. That's why there's 2 midterms rather than 1 midterm. There's another, sort of opportunities for the different exams, so they can sort of, try some of these things out or experience them themselves, because sometimes you tell them about them and that isn't enough. They have to really experience it themselves. And so let them kind of do that, but also try to design that within the course itself, so that they can have some time to recover and realize that that's not a good thing to do. So.
Absolutely. And Lalita brings up that Panopto is a good tool for including quizzes right in the videos. And I don't remember if that works for students with screen readers as well, but I love the idea. I know that Takia Moore from Northridge was talking about Play Pause It, and there are tools out there that you can embed the questions directly in the video. So that's great that Panopto does that as well.
Another use I found with Panopto is the search feature capability within that. So it will, not only does it take and close caption and all of that, but also the verbiage or the text that's up on the screen, it will OCR also that. And so they can go through the search. And so it's useful. I show the students actually in class how they can actually take advantage of that particular piece. And if they're looking for a particular topic or particular where that was discussed, they can go through the video that way too.
Wow, that is really great to know. I had no idea. I never used that in Panopto. But I realized that I can also do usually I used to allow only the asynchronous students to, do those quizzes, but I can also make sure maybe I should do it for all, because those who are in class, they can also take those quizzes just to, reinforce their ideas. That's a great tool. Yeah, I just realized that. Thank you.
Mhm. And we were talking about that during the Institute, right? Of using tools that you can use both in real time as well as asynchronously. And
Right.
so it'd be great to know which ones allow that functionality. I know I brought up Nearpod and a couple
Yeah.
tools like that, Kahoot,
Yeah.
Poll Everywhere.
Yeah.
So Troy, you had your hand up. What would you like to share or ask?
It's more along the Panopto and the PlayPosit. Both of them seem to have this functionality for students to interact with each other while watching a video, to leave notes, comments, which seems like could be a really useful thing in a lecture. Students could help each other when they get to a certain point. But I haven't seen any actual examples of that, and I was just wondering if anybody had attempted using those tools like that.
Well, not Panopto or PlayPosit, but I did bring up some video annotation tools like Video Ant that allow students to do asynchronous commenting. I know there's a tool called Go React that allows students to comment on live videos as well, either with rubrics or preset kind of emotion icons, like how are you feeling during this part of the lecture, smiley face, flat face, or happy face. But yeah, it would be interesting to hear from the crowd, and we'll ask our asynchronous friends to share on Slack or in Canvas if you're using Panopto as an annotation tool for students to review content together.
And to give feedback to the instructor. I mean, what could be more wonderful than people asking questions in a lecture you've canned, right? And you can now get those questions and go back and go, oh, let me expand on that.
Exactly.
Also, I've used VoiceThread. We don't currently have it at Sac State at this point, but I've also given presentations that way. So like the presentation you just saw, but also having it a slide to slide type of thing with VoiceThread, where then people can comment back on it type of thing. So that's been very interesting for sort of that asynchronous kind of portion.
VoiceThread is good, as well as just the kind of end of session, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, having those students do that 1 minute paper type activity. What do you still understand? What do you not understand? And what questions do you have? And if they can sync that with a time code for the asynchronous students, that would be great. Good question, Troy.
Yeah, Kelly, I found that was an interesting technique too, was kind of off the 5 minute write or whatever, or the focusing tool. So as they're coming into the class, I noticed that you were doing similar kinds of activities or whatever, where they're basically, the quick write, correct, where they, you know, and you can even focus that a little bit in terms of the particular topics or whatever. So that, what do you know about this? And so I found that to be very useful in how shall we say, aligning the compasses. I mean, basically, people are coming from many different directions into the class, and then this allows them to kind of, take a few moments, kind of calibrate or readjust for the topics at hand, and that has, continuing that flow into the lesson then becomes very useful.
You bet. Later today, I'll be giving a presentation with my colleague at the online teaching conference. And the very first slide is, because we'll be talking about equity and online teaching, hashtag equity. Please share 3 to 5 words or phrases or concepts that you associate with the word equity. Go. And that way we get a common understanding, operational definition, so to speak, from everyone in the room. And we can kind of look at the outliers as well as the commonalities, but it is a nice opening activity, and it's an active learning exercise rather than, okay, I'm going to start lecturing now, please turn off your brain. So getting them started with an activity is something I strongly recommend, especially in flexible course environments.
I was curious about I noticed when you had mentioned that it's good to come in with a particular activity and not so much on the administrative aspects of the class, because it has a tendency to tamper down or silence or the interactivity aspect of it. And I was really kind of surprised by that. I mean, having noticed that I did find that to be the case. So
yeah, and some of the even just in-person teaching literature shows that the more you can start classes on an active note, the more engaged students will be throughout the duration. And it doesn't mean you can't cover administrative details at some point, maybe at the end instead of the beginning, unless it's something that you really need them, like it's maybe an exam review, in which case you can turn it into an activity like an exam wrapper. Okay, before we discuss the results, I want you to think through, what did you do to prepare for this exam? Go ahead and take some notes, and then we're going to describe the results and how well everyone did. And then we'll go into small groups, and you'll discuss in groups of 2 or 3 what you can do differently next time to improve your score. And so that is somewhat administrative, but it also creates an active atmosphere so that students are feeling engaged.
yeah, it always seemed logical that, we have everybody here, so let's go over a couple of key things. And here are the key things here on what's happening with this or what's happening with that. But then you kind of run through the laundry list there and everything. And I thought that was kind of interesting, how just the human nature of that aspect. And then, okay, any questions? Then, no. Okay, well,
Right.
And then you have to be careful about asking for any questions. You have to really give a 3-second pause.
I like to take a drink of water, so I actually take that pause, because sometimes we instructors just want to move on. And so sometimes it's helpful to have something to do that keeps our mouth from moving. There you go, Lalita.
No, I completely agree, and I remember in fall of 2020, when we were sure that we are virtual everything. What I started doing was I used to ask my class to join 5 minutes early and just talk. They needed to vent out a lot of things. So we just used to rant about all those things. Everybody was in together, So it was a great activity. Those students, I was so surprised. It has nothing to do with the classroom, but students like that activity more than, classroom teaching. They were looking forward to talk to each other. And then what I did also was I always scheduled my office hours right after the class. So on all 4 days, it was a pain. It was a lot of this thing for me, but then they liked that, because questions were fresh in their mind. They didn't have to wait for my office hours, and they could just ask that after the classroom. So that was really some of the things I did. And it depends, of course, your schedule also, because this semester in coming fall, my schedule is crazy. I cannot spend that 1 hour after the classroom because I have another class to teach. So, but that could be something. And I'm going to share that with our faculty also, because students need to talk to faculty, in a non-academic environment. They need to, talk in very different things they want to talk. So we should allow that interaction, because that is, I think, many of students have been telling us that they are missing their peers, they are missing their faculty. They miss that saying hi to faculty, stopping by the room and all those things. So those are some of the things, in flexible, I am hoping that will be, at least, that will be available to students.
I found a very similar thing. It was very interesting. Yes, they had, the lesson was sort of over. And then I gave an indication to them that the recording, was paused or was off at that particular point in time.
Yeah.
Which was a good thing. And they asked me a couple of questions, and then they just started talking to each other.
Yeah.
And I said, it's fine. I have, you can talk for a little bit more, it's a half hour here or so because I have that's fine. And then of course they started having student conversations, about, their faculty, other things and stuff like that. And I said, I'm not hearing anything. It's all good. Anyway, but they just appreciated the fact that there was time for them to intercommunicate. So, well, yeah, we just don't have the opportunity for that. I was surprised. I'm not sure why I was surprised, but I was surprised. And then realized that, well, yeah, they haven't had any opportunity to, it's just the human nature of this whole pandemic type of thing, and just not being able to talk to anybody and stuff. So I just kind of then incorporated that into the classes a little bit. So they just had, they had the little bit of time like that. So they really did like that.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to be creating a feedback form about the Institute. And this is a small group, so it's probably just something to get us started. But it'd be interesting to know, now that you all have participated in a flexible course experience yourselves, what helped, what would have been better if I had done something differently. So put your student hat back on for a second and think through, what was the experience like, and how can we translate that into ideas, not only for me to improve the Institute, but for all of you to take back and say, oh, yeah, I really did like it when Kevin did this, or I really wish Kevin would have done that. Any ideas?
Not that I can think of right now. Maybe.
That's okay. Yeah, don't want to put anybody on the spot. Like I said, we'll create a little survey for people to fill out so you can think through the ideas, but just something that came up.
Kevin, one of the things that I found about the tool itself, Canvas, was that it would duplicate things that we had seen before. So I would see something and I'd click a page and then I'd see the same thing. And so I would get somewhat lost, in the actual moving through the pages, because there were so many ways to navigate through. And I'm just wondering if there's something that could be done that controls that navigation a little bit more. So a faculty member goes, no, I did that part. No, I shouldn't have done that before. I clicked here already. And
so you're talking about the fact that I provided content in different formats, like the slides with the notes field versus the tabs on the content pages versus the video recordings?
Could be that. It just, all good things. But it was just, again, and then I was working a little bit ahead of the class. And so, as you know, sometimes I would say something and then later on it was answered, but I had already jumped to a certain place rather than being moved through that in a certain order. Now, again, the higher the flex, the more possibility of confusion.
True. And I think in those cases, I would say the Institute 90% of the way built when we started session 1. I wanted to leave some flexibility based on the feedback from the first session. So people who worked ahead may have encountered kind of rougher modules 3 and 4 until I was able to kind of leverage some early feedback, because I did spin this up in about 3 weeks. And so it's, I would say, for faculty members and professional developers / instructional designers who are going to do this, hopefully you'll have a little more time to put something together, have a chance to have people go through it and give feedback before you launch, but it's not always going to work that way, right? In this case, we put it together quickly, we jumped right into our sessions, and And that's the nature of it. And I'm glad that I was able to model kind of building the plane while you fly it, because
Absolutely. It was
that's
so
what
helpful
some of our
watching you do that. That was actually one of the greatest benefits, is to see you working as we were taking it and saying, okay, let's fix this and do that. That was
Right.
absolutely helpful.
Well, and things that I didn't realize until the moment. And I called them pull back the curtain comments, like the fact that I started sharing just one application instead of my whole screen. That is something that I had never done before. Normally I share my entire screen and I put it in present mode, but in order to be able to follow an outline or a script or a run of show document, you need to have part of your screen, if you only have one monitor, free, so that you can do something other than display what's going on. Dennis is smart, and if I had an iPad or something like that, then I could have had a second device or a second screen. I guess I could have used my smartphone for my script, but it's one of those things where we'll all get better together because of these different feedback loops. But one thing that I've been thinking through as a way to maybe improve the experience for the asynchronous learners is to turn on activity completion and make it very clear that these three artifacts, the video, the slides with the notes in the notes field, and the tabs, are three different versions of the same content, and you can choose which one makes the most sense for you. Right now, the way the pages are organized is nice to look at, but it may not serve that function as well. Or have some little mini quizzes, even though I didn't want to be, I guess the word probably is not correct, pedantic, having instructional designers and faculty members taking quizzes about the content because they want to get straight to putting it into practice. But that could be a way to, regardless of what format people choose, hey, if you can answer these questions, then you've consumed enough material to keep moving. Those are some good questions about how to construct a professional development experience that helps people track their own progress. It's a topic that I brought up, and there's still room for improvement, I will acknowledge.
Right. Because that was one of the things I realized, that in our institute at Fresno State, we are going to have some assessments for the faculty who are participating in the institute, so that we can track their progress, because we want some kind of accountability that they are doing what they promised to do. Mm-hmm. So by the way of taking quizzes, if not quizzes, but something so that they can submit some assessments or assignments that they are expected to do, so that we can hold them a little bit more responsible for,
right. And the activities that I chose to use for this institute were a little bit higher reaching. Hey, create a plan of what you intend to implement. Because Lalita, I was at one point in time back in the Stone Age, the person who led faculty development at San Francisco State. And I would always run into faculty members in the hallways or in the quad. And I'd say, hey, how are you using that stuff from that workshop you attended? And the answer was usually, oh, I haven't had time to make any changes to my course yet, but it was great. Thanks for having the workshop. And so really trying to kick it up a notch and get faculty members to start that, okay, now that you've learned it, what are you going to do with it? That's the tricky part, right?
Yeah. And I mean, we understand faculty, I myself, we are overwhelmed with so many information, so many things coming to, us in different ways. But then we want them also to try this thing, be a little bold. That's what our campus, this thing is, tagline is, be bold. So
yes.
Be bold.
So I'm putting in the chat, I and actually some of the other folks from the Cal State system contributed to a book that just came out, and it's free, it's digital, and it's about resilient pedagogy. And so it might give people more ideas about things to try. I'll put it in the Keep Learning section of the Canvas course, and I'll make sure to put it in Slack for the people who are asynchronous. But it came out of Utah State University. It's called Resilient Pedagogy: Practical Teaching Strategies to Overcome Distance, Disruption, and Distraction. So it's a really good collection of chapters by people from around the country. And so I know we're sharing within the Cal State system in this open lab and through this institute, but there's a chance to grab ideas from colleagues across the US.
So is this book available for faculty through library or something in Cal State?
Anyone can go to that website that I put and download the book, or individual chapters, or it's an open access book.
Oh, that's great.
And
That's
Dennis's
great.
colleague from Sacramento State, Janae Cohn, has a chapter in it. I forget who else from the Cal State system is represented there, but it's good stuff. We have about 5 minutes left. Any last questions or things that you'd like to see next time around? I'm going to keep digging. If you have faculty members you're working with that you feel would be able to give maybe 5 or 10 minute overview of how they're making their course more flexible, something that they may have already been doing in a multimodal situation, that would be fantastic, so that we can keep sharing the great ideas across the system. And you can pop those in Slack or email me as well. And that's a question directed to the live remote people, as well as you folks who are watching on your own time asynchronously. But I will stick around till 11:30 to answer questions, but I also don't want to keep you here if there's nothing else that people want to discuss or ask.
I like the comment that was made just a little bit earlier about having some sort of roadmap through the course or something like that. I mean, it's kind of a variant off of the run of show, but this is basically not so much the run of show for the faculty to run it, but more along the lines of from the student as to how do I go through there. And this is sort of a common issue with just LMSs in general, regardless of the LMS. And just trying to organize this. I mean, I can see from a person's standpoint, from a faculty standpoint, I mean, it's organized in your particular fashion, so you can sort of see how it goes, and it makes a lot of sense to you. But then it doesn't necessarily, it's still sort of a little bit, can be a mystery for students. I mean, because some students aren't seeing what the structure is, or and then we're layering in on this universal design, or these various various aspects on it with the flexibility portion. So yeah, I liked your idea, Kevin, about the having some sort of guide or whatever, little roadmap or something, and you can do this, and this, and that satisfies this type of thing or whatever. So
well, what I'm thinking, based on, again, Troy's name is appropriate. He's challenged me to think through how the learners are going through the experience. And even on each page in the Institute, right, you have in the top left corner the video. Directly below it, you have the transcript and the Google Slides. And then below that, you have the tabs with the slides in text format. And so if on that page, I just put a call to action box that says, choose one of the 3 formats. And then when you feel you have reviewed the content sufficiently, mark that you have finished reviewing this page, because you can have it so that the activity completion is done automatically as soon as students hit the page, which I find is inaccurate, because they could open it and close it and get credit. And then you can also have it so that they have to complete a quiz or something like that. But the middle ground is self-reporting, which is, students and faculty who are participants in professional development need to own the level of effort that they want to put into the learning and the application. So Troy, it took me 15 to 20 minutes, but I think I am onto something to make it possible for people to track which parts of the institute they have completed.
All good things.
Amen. And I appreciate the ideas and the questions.
And building the plane as we're flying it. There you go.
Exactly. There's a great commercial. I'll put that in Slack, where the flight attendant is pouring coffee and the wind is blowing so strong that the coffee is just going straight back down the aisle. And so, all right, well, it is just about 11:30 now. So thank you all for joining our first open lab. We'll do another one on Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and then one more next Tuesday, a week from today. And then I know there are plans in the works to have some sort of institute reunion in July after people have had more time to put things into practice and share what they're doing or ask questions before the fall begins. So, but I appreciate you being here. Dr. Dahlquist, thank you for your time and your wisdom, sharing what you've already done. And then we'll see you all again in a couple of days.
Thank you.